Namaskaram everyone. It's such an honor to be here with you. It's been the greatest honor of my life to represent all of you for the last 30 years. And to sit here in front of you and engage, it's almost been 2 years since this COVID-19 lockdown and pandemic has affected all our lives. Today is my first live interaction I've done in the last 20 months. And I'm very surprised to see you all are as sharp as 20 months ago. 3 out of 4 question answers being correct is really good. The last one is true. The Twin Towers came down in the morning at about 9:15 a.m. The evening before, I was in basement 2 of Tower 1. I was actually crossing over to New Jersey after finishing with the US Open. And I was coming back to India for 3 days before I was going to Davis Cup. So I went into basement 2 of Tower 1 with my bags, crossed over to Jersey, dropped my bags at a friend's house. When I came back to the New York side, to the Manhattan side, I went to a shopping mall called Banana Republic. And I picked up 2 khaki pants, one for my coach, one for myself. And I still have the receipt of that because we bought it and gave it in for repairs. We basically gave it in to get the length altered, the waist altered and things like that. And got on the flight back to India. When I landed in Frankfurt, I was escorted off the plane by the local airport police, and they told me that the Twin Towers were coming down. It's one of those close shaves in life that we have, and I've had a few, but I'll never forget the people on the front line, the firefighters, the fire brigade, the doctors, the nurses, the police, people that really gave their lives for the community. And for me, it's all about community. And the last answer to question number 4 is true. I was in the basement the night before.
Thank you, Leander, and thank God for you and for India. Yes, in 1990, you were Wimbledon junior champion. You turned pro in 1991, and you continued playing for the next 30 years. Bjorn Borg retired at 26, and Andy Roddick retired at 30. So tell us the secret. What is the secret to your longevity?
Passion, patriotism, hard work, and a little bit of pagalpan.
Okay.
I think you've got to have a little bit of crazy inside of you to achieve excellence. For me, excellence is not one particular medium, right? We all have a desire to achieve excellence in what we do. And for me, I grew up as a young footballer. My father's from Goa, my mother's from Bengal. Football was in the blood. I grew up playing football in the Maidan in Kolkata. I captained school at it. And then I went to a European football team when I was really young, when I was about 11 years old. But at that football academy, they asked me to give up my Indian passport to be able to play for their club, because they were not willing to spend millions of dollars nurturing a young boy who was eventually going to play for another country, which was their opposition. So I came back to India. I spoke to my father and I said, I want to emulate you and win an Olympic medal. My dad said, but football, India doesn't really play in the Olympics. I said, well, then we have to change sport. And he said, what are you going to play then? So I said, tennis. My father laughed for 6 minutes. He literally sat on the dining table that night and laughed at me for 6 minutes and said, but you don't even play tennis properly. I'm a bit of a rebel with a cause. So I asked my father that to find me the best tennis academy and to give me 52 weeks. And at the end of 1 year, I would tell him if I could actually do something in tennis. Well, the rest is history, as you said. It's been 30 years. My greatest honor is to play in the Olympics, to actually put India on the map, to get the world record of 7 Olympics in a row. I hope that one young kid somewhere around the world comes back and beats my record. But until then, India will always be in the record books for 7 consecutive Olympics in a row.
I actually want to put, Leander's Olympic record into some context. It was in around 1910s that, a person called Norman Pritchard won 2 silver medals. There is still a debate on whether he's really an Indian or British. But it took another 42 years, 1952 Helsinki Olympics, for an Indian to win an individual medal, and that was K.D. Jadhav in wrestling. For 44 years, no Indian could actually win an individual medal. It was only in 1996 that Leander got a bronze medal, the first one in 44 years for India. And also to put that in context, he was unseeded. There were many players ahead of him. The 16 guys were seeded. He was not even in the 16. And in his side of the draw was a gentleman called Mark Rosette, who was a 1992 gold medalist for Olympics. And then he actually beat Thomas Enquist in the third round and lost in the semi-finals to the eventual winner, Andre Agassi. And when he won the bronze medal in 1996, remember Neeraj Chopra was not even born. He was born the next year. So he really was those heady moments of 1996. And also, do you think that's really set the ball rolling for India for Olympics?
I think that Neeraj is a real champion. I think that Neeraj winning his Olympic medal in a sport like javelin, which is not really a household sport in our country, really speaks of his dedication, his hard work, his family's support. And to train for a sport like javelin and tennis, there was no textbook or there was no infrastructure in India. So Neeraj trained in Sweden, he trained in Europe, he went abroad to get his training. Well, for me, in my Olympic journey started in 1972 when my father played in Munich. And in Munich, if a few of you all have followed the Munich Olympics, Steven Spielberg made an amazing movie with Eric Bana called Munich. Ironic that a Jewish director made a movie on the German Olympics. Well, during the Munich Olympics, 12 Israeli athletes were taken hostage by Palestinian terrorists. The games were shut down for 4 days. I was conceived in those 4 days. I was born June 17, 1973. So for me, my Olympic journey is but obvious because I was born to a mother who captained India in basketball. Her playing jersey was number 5. I was born to a father who played centre half in field hockey, won a medal in 72. His playing jersey was number 10. My playing jersey in football was number 10, and unfortunately in tennis, we don't get fancy shirts like this. Number on the back. We only get a shirt with your name on the back. So for me to play for the country and to play for India was but natural. Plus also we come from a country with so much patriotism. We come from a country that's so diverse in culture, in language, in fashion, in food, in religion, in custom. For me to be an Indian, I'm so proud to be an Indian. When a lot of us athletes say we bleed blue, right? For me, when I've played in Wimbledon or when I've played in Grand Slams, sure I have 18 Grand Slams, but it doesn't feel the same. When I play for 1.3 billion Indians and I have an India shirt on with my name on the back, no one will beat me. Not Pete Sampras. I've been asked over 30 years to explain this emotion. And while I was watching the AV earlier on, I got the same goosebumps that I get every time Jana Gana Mana plays. I remember that dive in 96 against Agassi. And I remember that match so vividly, like it was just yesterday. But the reason I performed the way I have in Davis Cup to have the world record for India or in the Olympics is every single one of you. You have been the wind within my wings to elevate me to play a level of tennis that is world class. Why? Because we Indians are world class. If you look at the banking world, some of the best bankers on the planet, Indian. Some of the best IT, Indian. Some of the best doctors in the world, Indian. Some of the best business houses in the world, Indian. In sport, we can't say much of that. We can say Neeraj Chopra, yes, today. Like you said, he wasn't even born in 1996. Yes, you could say in shooting we had a couple Olympic medals, in wrestling we've had Olympic medals, in boxing we've had Olympic medals. But has anyone been number one in the world in sport? And that's what Mahesh and myself embarked on, is to prove to India that we can be the best in the world. And in 1999, we proved it. So now we can say in sport, in the field of tennis, we've had number ones in the world. So coming back to the Olympics, right? Growing up as a young boy, I used to polish my father's medal every Sunday morning after church. And I used to ask him what the goddess of Athena stood for. I asked him why 5 rings. And he said those 5 rings stand for the 5 continents on the planet. I asked him why the colors. And he explained to me each and every color: friendship, health, competition, so on and so forth. He explained to me that the Olympic movement is a movement for the community. Health, competition, friendship, camaraderie, community. The Olympic movement unites people. The message that I've tried to pass my whole life is that for a country of 1.3 billion Indians, if we unite as a community, we are the strongest democracy in the world. We are the fastest growing democracy in the world. We are the youngest democracy in the world. So in that, I wanted to emulate my dad and win an Olympic medal. It was just as simple as that. I picked a sport that I'm not very good at. I'm not very tall for a tennis player. I don't have a good technique on my backhand. And I don't have much patience on the baseline. But the God-given talents that I have, which is eye-hand coordination, which we'll talk about in a second, because esports is so relevant to my growing up. But the skills that I have, I worked hard, I have a lot of passion. I found a lot of happiness within the loneliness of achieving excellence. But then when we got to Atlanta in '96, I felt my dream player. So to answer that question in a really long way, my dream started in '72 when I was conceived in Munich. Every Sunday morning polishing my dad's medal, eventually getting to Atlanta, I drew Pete Sampras in the first round. When I looked at the draw, my captain, Jaideep Mukherjee at the time, tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "Son, don't worry, there's another Olympics in 4 years." I still remember that, because it was the same laughter that my father gave me when I said tennis. And I love, when someone says you can't do it, right? I love them saying that to me. It fuels my fire. I don't get angry, I don't get upset. I don't even laugh at them, but internally I'm giggling. Because when I stood on that podium, I had my medal and I actually showed it to him. And I said, "Sir, there is an Olympics in 4 years. Maybe we'll get the gold then." But today, we got the bronze medal for India.
So Leander, not just when you play for India, when you talk about India, I can see the emotions running. I get goosebumps too when you not just play, but just talk about India as well. Now, coming from sports to esports, Olympics, Tokyo Olympics this year had the Olympic Virtual Series. So you had sailing, rowing, motorsports, etc. as part of the Olympic Virtual Series. And the next year's Asian Games, Hangzhou, will have e-sport as a official medal sport. Do you think there is mainstream acceptance of esports now?
100%. I think that esports is a fabulous vehicle for India to excel in. Why do I say that? Because I believe that 70 to 80% of our talent in sports in India is untapped because they're in the rural areas. I feel that our children in the metros, they've gotten much more used to staying indoors, using their smart gadgets, their mobile phones, their iPhones, staying indoors and doing work on the computer. I feel that esports in India can excel in a huge way because the young generation is so accustomed to actually smart gadgets. I feel that my generation, we've had to turn our thinking. We were more about playing outdoor sports. We were more about going into the Maidan. In school, we had PT. We would go out to the field and play. We would get dirty in the mud. Because we didn't have the opportunities back then to actually have such wonderful things like
esports, like you have archery, you have speed chess, you have WC cricket, and to name a few games that are so amazing. I think that esports coming into the Asian Games is fantastic. Do not be surprised if India wins medals, gold, silver, and bronze medals in esports. Do not be surprised. I think games like esport games connects with our Indian intellect. It connects with our Indian thinking.
That eye-hand coordination Indians excel at compared to body contact sport. So it's tough to see India excel in rugby on the world stage, like the All Blacks and the Wallabies. It's tough to see India excel in football, soccer, like the Europeans and so on and so forth. Why? Because they're contact sport. But in esports, it matches with our intellect, and to see that coming into the Olympics for me is such a great move in the right direction. I really look forward to India excelling at esports, and I'm not going to be surprised when we come back with gold medals.
That's great. Let's hope. We actually had a bronze medal last time at the Asian Games. A gentleman called Tirth Mehta from a small town called Bhuj actually won a bronze medal. Probably one of the least known bronze medalists of the Asian Games. You took part in the MPL campaign, Maidan Nahi Khel Wahi. So just tell me, what are the kinds, what skills, expertise can be actually transferred from esports to sports and vice versa?
That's a great question. Well, one is excellence is not just measured by sweat and by mud or playing in the Maidan. Excellence is different to everybody else. It's a perception. So for me, from physical activity sports, what you can take into esports is the same excellence of passion, competition, hard work, repetition. I think in esports more than in physical sports, that repetition, because the quickness of your reaction time, the quickness of your mind, it translates even more to esports. I'll give you a simple example. So in tennis, we have a thing called double fault. It's when you serve 2 serves into the net or out of the box. In tennis, I could serve 3 double faults in a game, go down love 40, and still win the game. Whereas in esports, it's tough to recover from a double fault. So I love speed chess. I love archery. I know that there's WC cricket.
Yeah.
But I'm not much of a gamer on cricket and fantasy like that.
Yeah.
I love playing cricket or playing football.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at the cricket game. But in speed chess, I love playing that. In that, you can't come back from a double fault.
Sure.
Because the computer's mind is so sharp, it's so, the program is written so sharply, you make one mistake and it's tough to recover, especially at the higher level, right? So for me, I think that what you can take from physical sport to e-sport is leadership, camaraderie, teamwork. Your children who are actually sitting indoors nowadays are not interacting with many people like my generation did. But through gaming, you can motivate them to communicate, to interact. You can teach them leadership, camaraderie. You can teach them how to handle a defeat, how to handle a win. So I think that sport in general is a great way of life. And I'm so happy that esports is coming into mainstream because it can really educate our young children just how we have been educated in the Maidan. When we fell and got cut or got hurt or lost a match, you had to learn how to lose gracefully. You had to learn how to win gracefully. You had to learn how to be a leader and actually take everybody along with you. Not just to run ahead and leave everybody behind. You're not going to win like that. Esports teaches you all those skills. Also the other way. What can physical sport athletes learn from esports? I'll tell you a funny story. Back in the 80s, my father used to give me 100 rupees every day to play video games. On Park Street, like the gentleman in the front right here said, where I grew up in Kolkata, there was a video game parlor called Wonderland. The ice cream parlor was Sub-Zero. Video game parlor was Wonderland. I thought I had the best dad in the world because he gave me 100 rupees to play video games every day. And after playing these video games for 3 months, every day I had to finish 100 rupees. And back then in the 80s, one video game was 1 rupee. How many games is that? 100, right? I'm a master at Pac-Man and at Space Invaders. I have studied the Pac-Man coding. Up in front, we've got one of the best animation talents in the world. He actually designed Chhota Bheem. And sir, can you please stand up? Can you please give this young man a big hand? There are two brothers who are sitting in the front here. And two brothers have inspired me for the 2 minutes I sat and talked with them. Because when I learned about networking, about channel, about animation from Disney, because I have a home in Orlando, Florida, 6 minutes from Mickey Mouse. When Etienne de Villiers, who designed Disney television, taught me about Disney and networking and animation, when I came back to India, I studied Chhota Bheem. That was my case study. And these two young brothers have put India on the map. They have taken Chhota Bheem, and please forgive me because I know you've come up with Chhota Bheem's baby, but I don't know the name of it. Mighty Little Bheem. And I case studied Chhota Bheem because I was wanting to come up with Leander animation. One of my nicknames is Mowgli. And I think it's only because I'm a little darker skinned and I've got olive eyes. And I really want to congratulate these two young brothers because they have taken Chhota Bheem globally, putting India on the map. I would love to collaborate with you and do something wonderful for the Indian community. But coming back to this again, I played 100 video games every single day. And after 3 months, I got so bored of video games, I came back to my dad and said, you keep the 100 rupees. My hands are tired and my eyes are tired of playing video games. And he said, no son, you don't realize that by playing video games, I am developing your hand-eye coordination. Those 18 Grand Slams that I've won, they don't tell you that I've lost 35 Grand Slam finals on top of that. But the reason I have the fastest hands in the game of tennis back in the 90s was because of gaming. The reason that I have chosen to partner with MPL is because I think MPL and Sai and the whole team behind are wonderful people. And they care about India. They care about community. And gaming taking worldwide through MPL is actually going to develop Olympic champions from India, Asian Game champions from India, and in the metros especially where every child has a smart gadget. It's going to teach all our children around the country skills of life through gaming. I am a product of Pac-Man, Space Invaders. You put a Pac-Man machine here, for the first three games, I probably won't lose a line. Because I still remember Pac-Man's brain, the way it's coded. But gaming, I think, is a wonderful medium to bring community together, bring kids together, create leadership, create camaraderie, teach people how to be humble in winning, how to be graceful in losing. These are life skills. And it's this modern generation that actually take to coding and gaming so much more than our generation. Yeah. I'm 48, this young man's 50, and he's in unbelievable shape. But we guys have to evolve and recode our minds to keep up to what the modern generation is doing, which is all on smart gadgets.
Thank you, Leander. Thanks to Pac-Man and to video games. Now, you see, in the 80s and 90s, kids growing up in India wanted to, play cricket, tennis. A lot of parents would say, okay, you play for 1 hour, but you can't play for 5-6 hours. You have to come and study. But now, if you look at it, parents actually want kids to play tennis, play cricket, play football, become a professional cricketer, footballer, whatever. However, the same scenario that we see in 80s and 90s in India is playing out in mobile gaming and esports in India, where the parents, the generation are saying, oh, my kid is actually playing mobile games all the time. So what do you really say to the parents, and one, how do you bridge the generation gap between the youngsters who are in their teens, early 20s playing games and their parents or their teachers who don't understand it?
I think building champions starts with the parents. There are many different philosophies to build champions, and having had the exposure around the world, one also saw Mark Spitz, who built a swimming pool in his living room, because he would jump in the pool as he woke up in the morning, get out of the pool after he did his training and sleep on his sofa. After breakfast, he jump in the pool again, come back and sleep on the sofa. After lunch, he jump in the pool again. In the evening, he jump in the pool. At night, he jump in the pool. So that is one methodology. I feel for the Indian community and for the Indian culture that our children should be trained in their locale. To ask a young kid from Guwahati to come to Gujarat and train there is going to be a huge change. To ask a young kid from Delhi to come to Tamil Nadu and train there is also going to be a huge change. And as much as I left home at the age of 12 to pursue my tennis, time has evolved a lot. I feel it's very important where in gaming, you can teach your child within their house. They don't have to travel globally. They don't have to go to boarding schools. They can be trained at home. But the essence of excellence is hard work, is passion. It's finding your comfort zone within the loneliness while you strive for excellence. Achieving excellence is a very lonely business. You must find your happiness within that. Trust me, I've lived in enough locker rooms because I didn't have money growing up. And when you're in Wolfsburg, Germany, in the middle of winter, and you've been locked into a locker room with 3 towels, one for your pillow, one for your blanket, and one to have a shower at 5:45 before the club is opened at 6 a.m. because you have to get out of the locker room. You realize how much hard work and passion it takes to achieve excellence.
Thank you, Leander. Last question before I open up for 3 questions from the audience. Okay, 3 questions. So whatever questions you want to ask, Leander, 3 questions I'll take from the audience. The last question from my side really is, you talked about what parents can do, what players can do. What do you think other stakeholders can really do to develop esports and sports in India and bring them to world level?
So with parents, with governments, with the elder statesmen who have not grown up with the smart gadgets and electronics, I think we all got to move with the times. We all got to encourage our children where their talent is. In my family, the whole family is full of doctors. But my father and mother, who were athletes, encouraged me at sport. In Kim's family up front, her parents encouraged her in modeling, in acting, and going out in the community and making a difference there. In every one of us that are there, we are products of our family, not necessarily a system. And I feel that it's very important for the parents to find and recognize the child's talent and encourage that. And if you don't know about it, like for example, I have 2 nephews who are coders. One nephew is in Delhi, one nephew is in California. I actually sat with them and tried to understand what is this coding. And this was about 10 years ago. Now, if we educate ourselves to learn the way that the community is moving, especially with these smart gadgets and electronics, then we are equipped to guide our children. And what is the greatest honor that we have in life, right? To be the platform and the trampoline to help the younger community succeed. We have approximately 745 million children under the age of 26. It makes us the youngest democracy in the world. Through these smart gadgets, through esports, why not encourage our youth to use our Indian buddhi, our Indian intellect to excel? I am so proud when I travel around the world, especially when I go to the west coast of America, Silicon Valley and such, When you see so many Indians in a huge Indian community talking about smart intellectual things, creating communities around them using our Indian buddhi. Even when you look at governance, right? I think that government's got to move along with the times as well and support the community. And I feel that nurturing new ways of life, like e-sport, is the way that governments can really prove that they are supporting the community, nurturing the community, and giving opportunity to the youth to be champions of our country. But it starts with the senior statesmen in community to educate ourselves, to then support the youth. I think that's the way it should be done.
Thank you, Leander, to be the platform and be the trampoline for our children to succeed. What a great note to end that. 3 questions from the audience. Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Leander.
Oh, the gentleman already has the mic, so after him.
Proud to meet you, and you've listed 3 important points about why you've been successful in tennis, especially for the question on longevity, right? I also would like to add another point to that, is that the sheer fitness that he has shown, it's amazing discipline to carry himself for such a long time, and I'm a fitness and human excellence coach and I can vouch for it. So a huge round of applause for Leander.
Thank you.
The question to you is that with sports getting popularized over a long period of time, and Indian parents are understanding the importance of it, I still see India bleeding blue. India bleeds cricket even now, right? There's a huge popularity around cricket, and I'm a huge fan of cricket too. At your level, what could be the push that you can add to the sports ministry to make them enlightened and evolved around all other sports, not waiting for Neeraj Chopra to win in javelin throw and people get acknowledged or enlightened about a sport called javelin throw? So what could, at your level, you could push the sports ministry to make people in India realize that there are other sports also should carry equal weightage, so that India can really stand up there, have multiple gold medals? So may I know what could you do at your level? I'm sure there's a great push that you can add to the sports ministry.
I didn't get your name.
Jitesh.
Jiten?
Jitesh. J.
Jitesh.
I'm a holistic fitness and well-being coach.
Wow. Well, Jitesh, I think your question is so relevant, especially now, because in the Tokyo Olympics, India has had the best results in the history of our Olympic performance. And I think the reason for that result is because of our Sports Minister Kiran Rijiju. The ex-Sports Minister Kiran Rijiju, who is a very dear friend of mine, worked so hard and so tirelessly with Khelo India to promote all sport that were majorly Olympic sport. And that is why we've come away where PV Sindhu replicated and won another medal. Unfortunately, Mary Kom lost, but we won a medal in wrestling. We won a medal in javelin, a gold in javelin. Exactly like you said, Neeraj is a real example that India can win in any platform. India can win in any platform. Be it in banking, be it in medicine, be it in computers, be it in javelin, be it in tennis. The only time we bleed blue is when we play against green. But when we lose, we turn orange. Means all of us are bleeding blue. These 2 young brothers here, they bleed blue. And that's why they are my champions. The fact that, Jitesh, you have come in and learned a craft to make a difference in society makes you my champion.
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Hi, Linda. It's an honor to have your presence here. Thank you so much for your time. I just want to, this is an interview that I saw of you many years ago. And that's why I thought it was a unique anecdote to talk about. The role of a butterfly in that particular match in 1996. And I'm sure some of you might know, some might not know, but straight from you, talk about this unique anecdote.
Man, you guys are sharp even after COVID, dude. Woof. The questions you'll have come up with, the homework that you have done, you know Park Street, he knows who I played in the Olympics, he knows about my butterfly. Oh, you know about the 9/11 story. And you guys in Andhra are really sharp. So I was in the bronze medal match against Fernando Melangeni. And I'm going to try and keep this really short because one of my prompters here says, time's up. But basically, I had hurt my wrist against Andre Agassi in the semi-finals. And I was playing with a big strapping on my wrist underneath my wristband. And the doctors had told me that I was going to jeopardize my career if I continued playing in the bronze medal match. Because I had severed 70% of my tendon between my wrist and my elbow by a passing shot from Andre Agassi. My wrist was in an awkward position. I had 2 set points in that position. I was up 6-5 in the first set against Agassi. He was serving 15-40. I tried to fend off this shot, but because my wrist was in an awkward position, the ball hit my racket snapped back, I tore 70% of my tendon. Well, 2 days later, unfortunately for me, that was the first Olympics where you had to play off for the bronze medal. The previous Olympics, there was a gold, a silver, and 2 bronzes were given to the semi-finalists. Well, in Atlanta was the first time I had to play for my medal. I'd lost the first set against Melangeni and I was down 1-2, 30-40. I was literally about 1 point away from losing. And India was 1 point away from losing the medal chance. So I came up to serve, and when you're in the heat of the battle, I came up to serve and I put my racket onto my forefinger of my left hand, and I was playing with a Prince Graphite Pro, and a butterfly, a papillon, came and sat on top of my tennis racket. And I was getting frustrated and bugged with it, so I just flicked it off, But then I came back, bounced the ball twice, and I came back ready to serve and start the point. And again, this butterfly came and sat on my tennis racket. And again, I flicked it off. I was getting really annoyed, because I was in the heat of the battle. I was losing. Things were not going good. My wrist was really hurting. India was losing its chances. And the third time I bounced the ball and came up to play, when she came back and sat on my tennis racket, I got a message. And I think butterflies are angels. In my life, butterflies are angels. And they come to me when I most need it. And the message I got that day was sometimes in life you don't have to be the best. You don't have to play the best. You don't have to be 100% ready. But if you're in the moment and you're aware of where you are, sometimes it's mind over matter. So I took this mariposa on my forefinger, walked up to the net, and because I speak Portuguese, Fernando Melangeni is from Brazil, I called him over and I discussed with him about this stupid mariposa distracting me. But actually, I was using my smarts to distract him. I knew that my wrist was not in the best of health, and I knew that physically I could not compete against him. So I used my Indian buddhi, we call it jugaad, to basically distract him. And all it took was 1 minute to talk about this mariposa. And when he got distracted, I went back. I hit a serve wide. He played a forehand return. I played a volley winner. I won that game. I won the set. And when I came to serve for the title, serve for the bronze medal match, I bounced the ball on the court and I came out of the zone. My young friend in the front, he would understand what the zone is. It's when you are in a space in time when nothing else matters but your craft. And I have been blessed to have a meeting of the body, the mind, and the soul. To be in a space where not one other human being is infiltrating that space, not one other thought is distracting that thought, where not one other thing in life is more important than the space you're in at this very moment. We champions call it the zone. I call it magic. I've been very blessed in my life to understand magic. Because as a short athlete, as an athlete who doesn't have technique, I can create and recreate magic. And that is why I'm successful. I took this mariposa, distracted Melanjeni, and I won my Olympic medal thanks to this mariposa. I will never forget her, because every time I'm a little confused, or every time I'm a little lonely, every time my family is with me, we see mariposas. I saw them this morning in our house in Goa. She was a big mariposa. She was black and yellow, wasn't she? And she flew so high, almost like a little bird. And Kim noticed her and said, "Hey, look at that butterfly." That's our angel. I think mariposas, butterflies, papillons, I think they're our angels.
Actually, Leander, you use 4 languages for to describe butterfly: papillon French, mariposa Portuguese, as well as Spanish, and of course butterfly. Yes, third, one more question. Yes, the lady there.
I think it's on.
Yeah, it is.
It's an honor meeting you here, and I should accept that every cell in my body is inspired with the talk that we had today. And I bow to the person who's sitting in front of us. So I would like to introduce myself. I'm a teacher, and recently recognized as one of the top 50 teachers in the world by Bharti Foundation. So when you were mentioning that how esports can be the future for this generation students, I had this idea about 10 days ago, and I was having a similar conversation, but I haven't started yet. I only got introduced to Rajiv here today because one of my students created a mascot called Cheru. Cheru is like the lake. We revived the lake, like my students revived an urban lake. So she created a mascot which says that, it's the persona of a lake in a human form. So I now have connection with the teachers across the world. So I wanted to create more environmentally sensitive future generations. So using this mascot Cheru, and now esports, and you leading the way. Can it be possible?
Ma'am, I didn't get your name.
My name is Meghna.
Meghna?
Meghna Musnuri.
Guys, can we please give Meghna a big hand? She's one of the top 50 teachers in the world.
Thank you so much.
Firstly, you are my champion. I am so proud when I see an Indian woman excel. I'm so proud when we give our women reverence, respect, and we recognize the excellence that Indian women have. I think that it starts with us men. I think it starts in our homes. I think it starts with guys like me who actually can collaborate and work with all of society and make a difference. I think that being a teacher, some of our best teachers have left our country. They've gone to London, they've gone to Singapore, they've gone to Hong Kong, they've gone to Canada and Australia. They've gone for better opportunities, so to say.
I came back from London.
And you have come back from London.
To teach in India.
And I think that is fantastic. And just as you said, ma'am, I think that being a student of life and being a student of my craft, our teachers is where it starts. Education is where it starts. Wherever we choose to excel in, the first thing we need to do is gain knowledge. Have the right gurus, have the right teachers. and then to empower our teachers to go broad and wide and teach, spread the knowledge. I think that animation, esports, intellect, computers, I think that the Indian intellect is fantastic. We're one of the smartest communities on the planet. And I think that both men and women equally, to use that intellect and showcase it across the world, I think is very important.